Hi everyone. I'm Fumida Kapadia. I am the founder of Amplify MedTech. Amplify MedTech was founded in November of 2024 to support the MedTech ecosystem in the region. We want to bring together all the stakeholders in the MedTech ecosystem to promote collaboration, networking, and sharing of resources because as many of you who are startups know, we don't build companies in a silo, and we need people to support us and help us build and grow our organizations. And that was my goal for launching Amplify MedTech. We provide a lot of different events and opportunities for you to gain access to resources, including events, workshops, education, as well as consulting services. Um, we support everyone in the medtech ecosystem because we believe it's important to bring the entire ecosystem together for all individual partners to thrive in this ecosystem. So with that, if you do not follow us on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend that you follow us on LinkedIn. As we are very active on LinkedIn, we post all our events on LinkedIn, and so you'll get all the information about us on LinkedIn. Bhavya will drop a link to our LinkedIn page as well. So in case you are not following us, please do so. Our next event is going to be an in-person event on digital health. This will be at the Maryland Innovation Center on June 11th in the evening from 5 to 8 p.m. And it's going to be a panel discussion, which will talk about building as well as commercializing digital health technologies. So we look forward to, if you're in the DMV area, we look forward to having you join us for this event on June 11th. And so with that, I would now like to turn it over to Neo Gamo, who is going to tell us a little bit more about what's happening with SBIR STTR.
Um, Hi everyone, I'm Neo Gamo and welcome to this webinar on the SBIR and STTR reauthorization and how we can navigate the changes moving forward. So I'll start a bit with my background. I actually started as an academic researcher in neuroscience and psychiatry. So I got my PhD in neurobiology, and then I came to the area to do a postdoc in the molecular psychiatry program at Johns Hopkins. After that, I had the opportunity to jump into the startup world. So I was founder and CEO of Neurosonics Medical, where we were developing a therapeutic ultrasound device to make brain surgery a lot less invasive. After a few years of that, I was the VP of Business Development at the MDC Studio, which is a startup studio based in downtown Baltimore. And we helped to launch mostly medical device, but a range of medtech startups from very early stages. And I also got the chance to work at some of the affiliated venture funds. And I'm very happy to say that as of this year, I am focusing full time on what used to be a side gig, but now it's my full-time thing. I run a grant and proposal atelier. I offer grant consulting for biotech, medtech, digital health, and life sciences innovators. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, researchers, and clinicians to help them navigate non-dilutive funding, especially at early stages of their companies. So here I get to combine around 20 years of my experience as a researcher, as a medtech founder, business development consultant, and I've also been able to be a reviewer for SBIR and STTR several times. All right. So here is an outline of what I'm going to talk about today. So I'll start with a brief overview of the SBIR STTR program, and then do a recap of what happened over the last 6 months. All right. And then I'll spend a bit of time on the major changes that have happened recently and how they will, especially changes that will affect your applications and possibly your company strategy. And then I'll end with some practical tips on what we can do right now as we prepare to apply moving forward. And we'll have some questions, time for questions at the end. All right, so the SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. These programs are often called America's Seed Funds. So these are grants or non-dilutive funding for research projects with potential for significant commercial or social impact. It's currently available from 11 federal agencies like the NIH, NSF, Department of War. And as you probably know, they come in different phases. So you can start with phase one, which is the smallest bucket of funds, smallest budget, excuse me, that you can start with. And then obviously followed by phase two. Fast track is where you apply for phases one and two at the same time. And for projects that are a little farther along, you can jump straight to phase two. If you're wondering what the differences are between the SBIR and STTR, the differences are mostly administrative. So the SBIR program was introduced first to innovate, to stimulate technology innovation in the US. And then the STTR program was introduced a little later on to encourage these small businesses to collaborate with research institutions across the country. So one main difference is regarding partnering with research institutions. So with an SBIR, you can partner with a research institution, but you don't have to. Whereas the SDTR, the point is to partner with a research institution. The way the budget is distributed outside of the small business is also a little different. So with an SBIR, for phase one, up to a third of the budget can go outside of the company. So for example, to consultants or for subawards. And for phase two, up to half of the budget can go outside the company. The STTR has a bit more flexibility for spending money outside of the small business. So at least 40% has to go to the company, at least 30% has to go to partnering research institution, and the remaining 30% can either stay within the company or it can be spent outside of the company. And then finally, for an SBIR, the PI, principal investigator leading the project, must be 51% employed by the company. What that means in practical terms is that the PI cannot be employed full-time elsewhere. So if someone is, say, a full-time researcher or full-time clinician outside of the company, then they cannot be a PI for the SBIR unless they stop working there full-time. However, for an STTR, the PI may be employed by the company or the partnering research institution. All right, so now I'm going to do a recap of what happened over the last 6 months. So I'm sure you're all here because you're well aware that the SBIR STTR program expired in October of last year. This is beyond what any of us expected. It's actually the first lapse in its 43-year history. So it was lapsed for 6 months. It was finally reauthorized last month. And it's been reauthorized for 5 years, so until 2031, instead of the usual 3 years. So that is a good thing. And now what we're seeing is that various federal agencies are starting to implement the SBIR and SDTR programs again. One thing to note is that any unobligated funds from this fiscal year can be, but is not required to be rolled over to the next fiscal year, which starts in September. And another thing is that the Department of War is only required to allocate 70% of the usual budget for this fiscal year, which unfortunately means around $1 billion reduction in the budget for this fiscal year. So now I'm going to go over the various changes that have happened recently. So this is just an overview. So briefly, there are now caps on submissions and awards. There's a simplified peer review system at NIH. There's an increased emphasis on strategic priorities. There's a new strategic breakthrough pathway. There are broadened uses now for the TABA funds, increased due diligence, including foreign components, changes to some of the forms at the NIH, and a change to the notice of award that you would get. All right, so there are now caps on the number of submissions that are allowed, and also on the number of active awards at any time. So this was one of the big things that was being discussed over the last several months. And the goal is to prevent these companies that are nicknamed SBIR mills. So companies that have gotten really good at getting SBIR awards. And so, there are some companies that were getting millions in SBIR funding without really making a genuine effort to commercialize what they were working on, which is not the point of the SBIR program. And so to prevent this, agencies can now set their own limits on the number of submissions per solicitation topic or fiscal year. They can override the limit by a little bit for certain urgent mission critical needs. So far, the only explicit limit I've seen is from NIH. So the NIH has announced that each company can submit up to 9 proposals per fiscal year. Agencies can also limit the maximum number of active awards that a company has at any given time, although I have not seen any specific limits published as of now. There is also a simplified peer review system now at NIH. So this is not this has been going on for a little while, but they are now scoring 3 instead of 5 key aspects. So reviewers are now looking at significance, innovation, and approach. Another big change is that in the past, so what happens is, you submit your proposal, the reviewers will review all of the submitted proposals and give their own scores according to these categories. And then based on all of those scores, the reviewers come together for a study session to discuss these proposals. In the past, the top 50% of proposals would get discussed, but now only the top 30 to 35% of applications are discussed during these meetings. And there's now this new category where the middle third is designated as competitive, not discussed. So this is new. So a lot of us were wondering, what actually happens to proposals in this category. Technically, they are still considered for funding. And I've heard that some NIH proposals that are in the competitive not discussed category have been receiving just-in-time requests, which is promising. So they're still definitely under consideration. And the bottom third of proposals are not considered for funding. There's also now an increased emphasis on strategic priorities at these federal agencies. So this is especially relevant to NIH. So NIH says that they are moving away from using pay lines, which are essentially cutoff scores, to make their funding decisions. So they're giving less weight. So they're still doing the peer reviews with the scores, but they're giving less weight to that. And this allows for more discretionary review by the agency or institute directors and staff to make a more holistic funding decision. So for example, NIH says that they're considering institute priorities, the applicant's career stage, existing funding, and location, whereas the Department of War is now prioritizing rapid transition to commercialization, scalability of the product, and the operational capability of the companies. There is a new strategic breakthrough pathway. So the goal of this pathway is to commercialize late-stage SBIR and STTR technologies for companies that already have received a Phase 2 award. This pathway is available to agencies with SBIR and STTR budgets over $100 million. So that includes Department of Energy, Department of War, NASA, NIH, and NSF. So with this mechanism, a company can get up to $30 million over 48 months. And this requires 100% matching funds from the small business. So if you apply for $5 million, you have to show that you can bring in $5 million from elsewhere. And this can come from federal or private sources. This is already being implemented through Department of War, through their Accelerated Research for Transition program. And they have an additional requirement that at least 20% of the matching funds has to come from new Department of War sources. All right, so TABA funds can now be used for a wider range of activities. Yes, Afamita.
I don't have a question. This
Oh, okay.
Zoom doing its own thing. I'm
Oh,
sorry
okay.
about that.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so now you can use TABA funds for a wider range of activities than before. So if you don't know, TABA stands for Technical and Business Assistance. So these are supplemental funds that you can apply for along with your SBIR STTR award to fund commercialization or product development related activities. It's $6,500 for phase one and up to $50,000 for phase two. And it can now be used for things like cybersecurity support, ICOR participation. A big change is that you can now use these funds to support internal staff, not just external vendors or consultants. And of course, you can fund things like market research, IP strategy, regulatory planning, and manufacturing. This is another big issue that was being discussed over the past several months. So there's now enhanced screening for foreign ownership, control, or influence. So they're looking at employee ties, consultants, business advisors, investors, patents, any license agreements, and cybersecurity practices related to the foreign countries of concern. A positive change from before is that in the past, sometimes companies would get denied for one of these reasons, but they don't get a reason why they were denied. So now you may not necessarily get details, but you are supposed. So if a company is denied an award due to a security risk issue, they will be provided with at least a general basis for that decision, and the company is allowed to reapply for SBIRs and STTRs in future. All right, there are a few changes to formats for some of the forums at the NIH. So as of tomorrow, May 8th, the NIH is implementing the common forms for the BioSketch and current and pending support. So this is already, I know it's already being done by NSF, but you do have to use the Science CV system. So you need to make sure you're there, you go there, input your information, and then it'll output a BioSketch, say in the NIH format or the NSF format. And all senior and key personnel also need to have an ORCID ID linked to the ERA Commons profile. So make sure you're familiar with those aspects. And then the data management and sharing plan has changed formats. I took a look. It looks a little simpler than what it used to be. All right, and final thing I want to mention is that award notices will now state that grants can be terminated if the agency determines that the award no longer effectuates the program goals or agency priorities. We think that's there to prevent any legal challenges if grants are unfortunately canceled after they're awarded. All right, so now I'm going to go through a few things we can do right now as we prepare to apply. So I'll go over some new solicitations that are coming out, the changing nature of the competition with a lot of these changes, the importance of aligning with agency or institute priorities, and then some additional tips for how we can start preparing now. All right, so new solicitations are coming out or have been forecasted. So when you do look at them, just make sure to check for anything that's changed since the last solicitation, changes in instructions or budget amounts. For the NIH, new solicitations are anticipated on June 1st, and they've confirmed that the next deadline should be on September 8th. It'll say September 5th on the website, but because September 8th falls on a weekend, and then the next Monday is Labor Day holiday, the actual deadline is on September 8th of this year. For NSF, they said that the project pitch portal should open soon, and the next deadline for the invited full proposals is expected in July. For ARPA-H, new solicitations are expected to be posted on June 11th. The next deadline for their solution summaries is on July 10th, and the invited full submissions are expected to be due on September 9th. For Department of War, they've moved really quickly. They've already posted some topics, the first batch of which are due on May 13th. And the next deadline for the DARPA Biological Technologies Office is on June 3rd, and we're seeing some faster moving submission cycles. I want to talk about the changing nature of the competition with SBIRs and STTRs now. There's some aspects that are increasing the competition, but there are also aspects that decrease the competition. So of course, after a 6-month lapse, there's a rebound in demand. So a lot of people have been waiting, so we expect some crowded submission cycles coming up. There's also, as I mentioned, increased due diligence with these new compliance rules. So that can be good and bad depending on who you are. And also with these proposal caps and AI screening that some agencies are implementing, that's going to reduce competition from these high volume, low quality applicants. So we want to focus on targeted high quality proposals. I also mentioned that NIH is shifting away from these payline cutoffs, and so it's important to focus on fit with institute priorities. Of course, after a 6-month lapse, some companies may have shifted their focus away from grant funding. And I want to point out an interesting thing that happened over the past year. So the success rate of NIH, SBIRs, and STTRs dropped drastically from what used to be around 15 to 17% to around 8% last year. This is likely due to the NIH being overloaded by AI generated proposals. They are saying that they will not accept proposals that have been substantially generated by AI, but AI is making everything, making a lot of things efficient, and so this is a trend that may continue. All right. Another thing I mentioned earlier was that it's important to align now with the agency and institute priorities. So meet early with program managers and program officers and make sure that your proposals are addressing the agency or institute's strategic mandates. You also want to mention explicitly in your proposal that you're addressing these priorities. So you can mention it in the specific aims and in the research strategy and so on. But I do want to point out that, as I'm sure you've heard, the National Science Board, which oversees the NSF, was just dismissed. And so that's not going to, that's probably not going to immediately impact SBIRs and STTRs at the NSF. There may be longer term uncertainties in strategic priorities at the NSF, and it may just shift towards areas that are favored by the current administration. A few additional tips. Make sure to confirm all of your registrations now. So things like sam.gov, grants.gov, because if these are not up and running, you cannot submit. And remember, all of these registrations can take up to 6 weeks to complete. So make sure you check now. If you need to renew anything, start now. Check compliance issues, including foreign components and affiliations for your company and all of your key personnel. Familiarize yourself with the common forms, so make sure you have an ORCID ID and check out the Science CV website. Think about how to make the most of TABA funding now that you can use it for a wider range of activities. As I mentioned earlier, once you decide which agency you want to apply to, check the policy on the use of AI tools because it's not all the same. So NIH has stated that they will not consider applications that are either substantially developed by AI or contain sections that are substantially developed by AI to be original ideas of applicants. And it's important to remember that this applies not just when you first submit, but they can also check after you get an award. And so you want to make sure that you're careful there. NIH says that they are checking for AI usage. We don't know how though. Whereas NSF is saying that you should indicate the extent to which generative AI was used and how it was used in your proposal. So just make sure you check that and be careful about that. And finally, if you're interested in the strategic breakthrough pathway, so this is the one for companies with a phase 2 award. You can apply up to $30 million, but you do need to bring in matching funds. So if you're interested, so if you think you'll be interested in that eventually, start building investor relationships to make sure you can get the matching funds. Great. So that is all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Neo. And I also wanted to share that as a follow-up to this, we're going to have a workshop that we are starting on July 1st. It will be 5 sessions from July 1st through August 26th. And these will be hands-on workshops that will help you work through your NIH Phase 1 SBIR STTR proposal. So if you're interested in getting some hands-on support for your proposal writing, please join us. The registration is up and available. And Bhavya, if you can drop the link to the registration as well. And feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions. Right. If there are no more questions, I just want to remind everyone that we are going to host a workshop. I've dropped the link in chat again, starting July 1st, 5 sessions from July 1st through to August 26th to help you prepare for the upcoming NIH SBIR STTR Phase 1.
Yes, so we will go step by step through all the sections of the proposal. There's an option for a mock review. So we hope to see you all there.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have
Thank you
a
so
wonderful
much. Thank you,
afternoon.
Fahmida. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.